I stopped presenting and it's just the two of us. So once again, thank you so much for being here, and for you guys who are maybe connecting for the very first time to this webinar series. What is this about? Well, I get a lot of questions about how do I become a behavioral consultant? How do I get my first clients? How do I build a consultancy? And I thought, well, why not to speak with a couple of people who have been there, who have done it, and who have succeeded, so they can share their insights, their lessons learned. We've had Melina Palmer a month ago, then 2 weeks ago, Sam Salzer from Habit Weekly, and today we have Torben. So Torben, who are you? Well, let me, so that it's not about you bragging about yourself. You'll do that just in a minute. But Torben is the CEO of Affective Advisory. I think you founded the company in 2016, am I right?
17, yes.
17. You're also the founding member of GAPS, which is the Association of Applied Behavioral Scientists. And well, you've achieved many more things. But Torben, what was your journey? How did you get into the field and got this idea of creating your own consultancy?
I sometimes wonder myself still to this day. So this is clearly a story with a lot of hindsight bias and a lot of making sense looking back to what has happened in the last 7 years. So it's true that we founded, I founded Affective Advisory in September 2017, after having been in several roles in finance and strategy before, and after having been at the LSE, the London School of Economics, doing a executive master's in behavioral science. Prior to this program at the London School of Economics, I had the opportunity to work on 2 projects with some links to behavioral science, and I was curious to learn more about behavioral science since I graduated from the University of Basel in my undergrad. So I was always drawn to this intersection of why people do the things they do on an individual level, and how this scales and amplifies to societal behavior and societal behavior change on a more economic aggregate level. And so it took me to a first master's degree and then several years of work, as I said, and then really into this rabbit hole of behavioral sciences. So coming back from London in 16, I was running 2 projects. One was the support of the setup of a nudge unit, which was led by a friend of mine, and I supported as a consultant. And second was to run a behavioral risk profiling project in a financial institution. And during that time, it was, as I said, 17. Behavioral science was pretty new in the German-speaking market of Europe. It was way more established in the Anglo-Saxon world, namely the UK, the US, and some parts of Australia and Asia. But it was less so in the Swiss, German, Austrian context, as well as the sort of Western European non-UK context. And I had this dream of doing behavioral sciences in a way that is focused on really making change, having an impact on strategy, policy, and communications. And I was talking to a number of figures you all know. Everybody who's interested in behavioral science have probably heard about or even met. And I figured what I wanted to do wasn't existent in the Swiss or German-speaking context. And so through a number of conversations, through a number of meetings, and through a number of research and development sessions with colleagues at the LSE, as well as in several other roles, I drew up the sketch of a consultancy, fully specialized, dedicated consultancy, which was Affective. And with that idea developing over the years, I then was led to found the firm as a full setup. And I was doing this for about half a year part-time with an official mandate. And it was so much fun and so much interesting opportunity arose that I said, okay, I want to give this the full trial, leave the comfortable business world and start on my own, which I then realized in the end of 17, beginning of 18. And from that day, I did that. And I can say in hindsight, I enjoyed it ever since. And it's been the most interesting and most exciting journey.
Well, I follow your journey, and you didn't always sound as enthusiastic as you sound now. So it wasn't that easy, I suppose, over the
No, of course
six,
not.
7 years, right?
No, of course not. And everybody who says that an entrepreneurial journey is always fun and is always positive is probably not telling the full truth of the story. I was working quite hard. I was, of course, very lucky to meet a lot of very interesting, hardworking people. And I think a lot of things just came together that made it possible to do it. And of course, any entrepreneurial setup, I assume, and any journey that is at the intersection of a new emerging field, a new company, and I would say even a whole like tiny revolution in how consulting, behavioral consulting is being thought of, is challenged to perform. And I guess in hindsight, everything looks easy and smooth, as we know. But during the ride, I think it's been, and it still is today, to be honest, it's a challenge, and it's been not always nice, but as it is with training, you're happy when you get there and when you manage to make it work. Yes.
I have plenty of questions, Torben, but before I go on, guys, so please feel free to ask questions already now. So again, in your bottom right corner, there you have this square, circle, and triangle. And if you click there, there is a Q&A section. Please feel free to ask any questions you want. We'll come back to the questions at the end, and I'll have a glance while Torben is speaking, and I might pick up a couple of questions for our conversation. But Torben, so when you decided to go full-time Affective, do you already have a paying client, or was it just your decision that I want to focus all my time and effort to this? And I'll just keep hoping that some clients will come?
More the latter. It was really true that I had a couple of good conversations, a couple of good leads, and I think we found a good way to talk about behavioral science with the help of, hopefully, a convincing value proposition of what Affective is and what it does, and a convincing structure and model that we today call Drive, and that we've worked with ever since the founding of the firm. That said, we didn't have any big mandates, so I left my comfortable role before to really see if it's possible to realize this envisioned platform, this envisioned fully dedicated, specialized behavioral consultancy. And I was happy and lucky to then realize this in the coming weeks after. But as said, there was, in our terminology, quite a bit of optimism bias, and maybe a tiny bit of overconfidence bias involved, which probably any entrepreneur has to have in the mix to get started on the first day.
Many of those who've connected today and those who have connected in the past webinars are in a position where they kind of dream of becoming consultants, entering the field. And you mentioned that you both studied behavioral economics or behavioral science in London, and you also had some work experience in some financial institutions. Now, my question is, how important do you find that having a degree, like a formal degree in behavioral science, is if you want to become a consultant?
Well, it really depends. So I think I allow myself to sort of expand that question a bit. Do you have to have a behavioral science degree to be a good consultant? No. Do you have to have a behavioral science degree to be sort of a fully specialized behavioral scientist? Maybe. It really depends on what you want to do, where you come from, and what you also want to do with it. So there are a whole lot of jobs, a whole lot of roles out there that are not labeled behavioral scientist or behavioral science consultant. You can maybe find them in marketing, you can find them in HR, you can find them in data analysis or data science. You can find them all over. Not only because they're not labeled behavioral scientists doesn't mean that people are doing amazing behavioral science work. And we've actually collaborated with a number of people that don't bear the title of a behavioral science or behavioral science consultant, but do an amazing job in translating academic insights into policy or strategy context. So I wouldn't say that it is required, but I would say it certainly helps. As a representative of the Global Association of Applied Behavioral Scientists and sort of as the managing partner of Affective, I would certainly look for a qualification in behavioral science or some meaningful proof that people have engaged with the topic on a scientific level. Ultimately, we're talking about changing behavior, which is something you want to be sure to use sound and ethical tools, and that you're sort of using responsible practices to do so. So there is a degree of making sure you know the tools and the principles of the practice. But then beyond that is a whole level of experience and grasp of contexts, behaviors, and situations. So just because you have a degree in behavioral science doesn't ensure that you're a good consultant or that you're actually able to do good behavioral work. Very often we see people with practical experience and somewhat of an exposure to behavioral problems in all areas are much quicker in seeing solutions and even in coming up with ways to test interventions than people with a full academic mindset. So I think it needs both, and it does the trick to combine the traits and to have a bit of both. Certainly get some experience, some exposure to the academic side of behavioral science, but even more get exposure to practical applications and get hands-on activities that allow you to experiment and see how behavior comes about and how it can ultimately be changed in practice.
Mm-hmm. Because, well, this is a very important question to many people, because I get asked by a lot of people from marketing, for instance. They have been in the marketing field, in marketing strategy, in business strategy for years, and they've fell in love with behavioral economics, with consumer psychology, and now they want to found their own companies. They want to go independent. They want to enter the field, and they're thinking, so should I dedicate another 1 or 2 years of my time and a lot of money to chasing a degree somewhere at the university? And well, usually my answer and my advice is no. Don't go for it if you do have the practical experience, because you have a big advantage in compared to those kids who graduate from with a degree, but they have never seen a real client. So what are your thoughts on that? So for people with the real marketing experience, for instance, who want to enter the field, what is a better use of their 2 years? Is it more focusing on the scientific part, or is it more, trying and going into the wild and starting applying as soon as possible?
Well, I think it depends a bit on what you want to do. And if you set out to start a consultancy with various colleagues, if you want to build a whole business model around it, I think then you probably need a bit of both. Mm-hmm. If you say, look, I want to be a consultant that joins an existing network, or that wants to be an individual practitioner or joining a small team, and you're very focused, for example, on the topic of, just pick one, marketing communications in digital or online environments, and you bring a whole lot of experience in that, you're right that in this instance, it might be beneficial to spend more time on applications, uses, and probably a little less focus on the fact that you need to ultimately earn a full degree on that topic if you don't intend to do all of this at the same time. As I said, I think if you can, and that's always a question of resources, time, money, opportunity, yeah, I would certainly vote for pursuing a degree or a degree-like education, meaning there are ways to run online courses. I know of a very good online course that
Don't you
educates
say?
has educated a lot of people on the applications of behavioral science in business, with some really well-known speakers showing not only the academic side but also the translation into business. So if that's possible, do that. But again, as I said, it is even more key to do the translation work. Imagine we've got 50 to 70 years, depending on how you count, of behavioral science insights in academia. How little of that has translated into business and policy is quite striking. And what I mean with this is that this impressive and super valuable field has so many insights that need to be unlocked in the practical side of this world. And so the more people we are in understanding the insights, but is great, but the more people we are in translating these insights is even more powerful. So I would certainly vote for, yes, if you can, pursue the idea of a degree or an education in whatever instance you can do that, but work around the translation, the excitement, and the combination of the insights in the real world, meaning in the applied side, being it in business, in strategy, communications, or in public policy.
And you've touched on another important topic, and that's being more kind of a generalist versus being more focused. And as far as I know, Affective and what you guys are doing, you work on projects from different fields, ranging from public to finance to other things. So I suppose that you decided not to go down the focus road. What are your thoughts on focusing versus not focusing? How important is it, mainly at the beginning when you're starting off?
So as a consultancy, we're fully focused. So all of our people have a master's or a PhD degree in behavioral science and have at least 2 years of work experience in this field. So they are doing just full-fledged behavioral science consulting. So in this regard, we are focused. In the regard of an industry focus, meaning we're just focusing on purely policy, or we're just focusing purely on finance, pharma, life science, we don't have that focus. And the reason is because we're focusing on human behavior, and human behavior is not isolated in an industry. We have a lot of learnings from the policy context that we can also apply in the business context, and yet a whole lot of learnings in the business context that benefits the policy sector. So that's one thing. Second thing is, as humans, we're also interacting with systems at various levels all of the time. So we call it the 3 Cs. We're citizens, we're colleagues, and customers at various times of the same day. So we are in scope of a policy, we're in scope of a internal strategy or internal policy of an organization, or simply something that we are hired into an organization or not hired. And we're customers with all the products we buy, with all the services we are using every day. And likewise, most of the organizations we work with, they work at the intersection of all these 3 Cs. And so it is beneficial from our perspective as behavioral scientists to be able to navigate the whole 3 dimensions and to be able to allow organizations to work with us across this range. That said, naturally, you build expertise. And so for us, with some mandates, we have naturally grown faster in some areas than in others. But I still think we can, to this day, say that we have a very broad range of expertise. Now, how does this look like in 5 to 10 years? I don't know, to be honest. But I could imagine that we built out more verticals or more focus on a number of clusters around certain behavioral use cases, which could then, for example, span, I don't know, finance, tech, insurance, or other clusters which span pharma, life science, and insurance, or something that is more in that focus. That can happen. And I think this is, if you look at other major consultancies in the world, that's sort of the natural tendency these organizations gravitate to. But for us to this day, and over the past 6-7 years, it has been beneficial to focus but be open-minded that behavior is very context dependent and context change, and so does behavior and behavior change.
Mm-hmm. Well, we decided to go down a different path of focusing more, but that happened a year ago. And until then, we were also working on very different fields and on different projects, different assignments. But then we thought, well, okay, it seems like we have a lot of projects in banking, insurance, in the financial sector. So what if we just focused on that? Because that's also somehow where we felt the strongest, and we felt like we had the most impact. So I suppose if I want to distill kind of one or two thoughts from what you've just said, would it be correct to say that if you're starting out, leaving many avenues open and just exploring, maybe being more focused on the behavioral part of things and applying it in different fields is an interesting path to go, because you will then discover what gets the most traction, where you feel the most comfortable. And then after some time, there might come the point in time where you decide to focus more.
Maybe you're already a step ahead. Maybe you have already figured a niche that works for you and the specialization.
Well, Torben, I'll ask a different question, because I might have not asked it in the right way. Can you imagine that you would decide for some kind of a focus at the beginning of your career as independent consultant?
Yes. Again, you can. I mean, I can very well imagine that today, depending on the background of an individual. So I'm saying this is just the story I can share. And that's with all the, as I said, with all the experiences, with all the luck, with all the different elements that came together to form what Affective and what I am and what the team has become. That's the story of us. But for an individual today, that brings, I don't know, 2-3 years of marketing experience, that brings a deep know-how of finance, or that just simply brings 2 or 3 clients that they work with in the financial industry. Of course, I would start there, because what happens is you build a project, you build a successful case, you build a reference, you're much quicker to acquire a new case. You build another reference, you build a specialization, you build a brand and a reputation for being a reliable partner for this industry. So there are certainly very specialized organizations that have grown on the back of a full-blown specialization in one area, and then only later branched out into some other areas. So I don't say there is any better or worse strategy. I can just say what worked for us and what still works for us quite well. But I can equally synthesize with the other way to say, we started in finance, we built 2 or 3 finance projects, we got the opportunity to work in an insurance project, and then afterwards in a pharma, life science, tech. And so you branch out of finance into others. That's equally possible. So I don't think there is any better or worse structure. My advice would be to pursue the opportunities that you have and to get as much hands-on experience as you can, if that's in one industry. Give yourself an industry focus and start with that.
This was a message that Melina especially emphasized very strongly. Get the real-world experience of applying the theoretical concepts. Start first thinking about how to apply this in practice, and then go out there and start applying it as soon as possible. Torben, you're now a team of 5 or 6?
6, yes.
6. When you think of your consultants, well, I suppose that you would say that they're all good consultants. What makes someone a good consultant? What is the skill set that people who want to become consultants, in your opinion, need to be good consultants?
Yeah, I'm tremendously happy and excited about the fact that we formed a good team of great consultants, great people. Why are they great consultants? Number one, I think they have knowledge and expertise in this field from being naturally interested in it, right? They found something that appears to be interesting and appears to be something they want to engage in and they want to talk about. They want to hear about, so they're excited to learn more. They're excited to, that equally applies to myself. They want to learn and understand the challenge of a client and want to see how we can use the tools from behavioral science to tackle these challenges and find new solutions for them. It's the deep industry topical interest. But that's only part of this. The second one is being able to listen. A good consultant should ideally listen more than he or she or they speak. Being able to understand the challenge and the situation and sort of the motivation and barriers of a client's challenge is key. Third, I think, is then the ability after listening is to communicate and translate complex information into ways that make it easier for the client. Clients, most of the time in our experience, are interested in having a consultant to make their life easier, not harder. So if you come and display a lot of information, which might be attractive, might be impressive, but not very useful, they won't find it that useful to work with you. So we have a big chunk of our work is to translate and communicate complex theory and applications in a simple way that allows the client to work and shine. And I think if you want to have a fourth dimension, I guess it's an ability to think along the clients and make the clients realize their targets successfully. And I always say we're a bit like good tailors. You understand the client, you find the right ingredients, the right cloth, the right setup, the right structure, and then you create something that fits to that client. So it's always tailor-made, and it makes them succeed, look good, without necessarily carrying your fat logo on it, but having like just the tiny initials saying, look, we delivered this, and most of the time people appreciate this most. So I would say these 4 elements.
Do you think, Torben, that it's imperative, it's absolutely necessary to be a good communicator, to be, let's say, extroverted, to be able to form relationships with clients, or you can still be a good consultant even though you don't feel that comfortable in social interactions, because, well, that's the case of many people out there. They're not those natural outgoing people who have no problem starting speaking with anybody.
Yes, you can be both. You don't have to be tremendously outgoing extrovert. Actually, if you score yourself, and if you look at it, probably all of us will be, including myself, will have areas where we're more extrovert and areas where we will be more introvert. And just because you don't enjoy speaking in front of a lot of people, and just because you might not be, I don't know, most interested in communicating all of the time to other people and enjoy your peace and maybe a bit of more reserved private work environment, doesn't mean you're not a good consultant, not at all, because you just need to find a channel to express your deliverables, your ideas, your contribution to projects and to clients in a different way. And look, today, with the advancements in tech and AI, it's never been easier to convey information to a target audience without standing in front of them. So you don't have to be in a call with Mate to talk about behavioral science to be a consultant and to do a good job in communicating insights. Not at all.
I'm really, really glad you're saying this, because that's also my experience. Our I would say we're a team of 6 also, and 4 of us are really introverted, and they don't really enjoy, spending their whole days with in interactions with other human beings. Nevertheless, I think they're absolutely world-class consultants. So, for all of you guys, you introverted ones out there, don't worry. You can still be amazing consultants. I mean, it might hurt a little bit more at the beginning, but absolutely no problem with becoming a successful consultant. And Torben, let's now switch gears a little bit and let's talk more business. So this was the first part, more about what makes a good consultant. Now, let's move on to the part how to become an independent consultant, because we're having a couple of questions there that aim more at business development at your first project. So tell us about your very first paid project. How did you get it? What was it about? And what was how did it help you to really start building a business? So not a passion project that would be an NGO, but a business.
The first one was indeed in a very passion project, a very much passion-based project, a social good project that I supported, where I learned a whole lot of things, where I was able to contribute a whole lot of things, and we had quite a good effect. I think what you're after was the second project, which was a first full-fledged full business consultancy project for a large network of shops in Switzerland, and it was ultimately a very nice behavioral challenge to find out how this branch network can understand client needs better and how they can support the staff working in there to identify client needs and service clients' needs more effectively, which is a beautiful win-win project, right? It's for the benefit of the clients, the customers using the service, and it's for the benefit of the company, as they are able to service clients more effectively, and at the benefit of that, being able to be more successful as a business. That has gone the whole way through. I mentioned before the framework we developed called Drive. It was about defining what good looks like, defining the behavioral challenge as a set of target behaviors and target actions. What do we want people to do? What do we want clients to understand? What do we want the service staff to do? We then looked into ways to research current behaviors. What is currently motivating people? What is currently stopping people? What are the barriers? What are using COM-B, the capabilities, opportunities, motivators? What are triggers that we set in this environment, and what are potential feedback opportunities? So running the whole research, and we literally went not only into the literature to understand and isolate ideas that we can leverage in this context, but we also went into full contextual research, going into the context, understanding it, using stopwatches to fully get a real understanding of how much time it takes to understand the situation and service and provide a better service. And then on the back of definition of ideal, research of current, developing interventions, solutions that could bring the ideal and the real world closer together, closing this intention action gap and delivering a solution that can then be rolled out in trial. So that was the first project, and as you can see, I'm still excited, even though it's almost 7 years back. And because it was a very nice full behavioral showcase of combining the academic insights with the real world insights, the contextual and behavioral research with the intervention design. And because it was a project where a client was genuinely interested to do good for the business and for the clients, and therefore a win-win, and then quite a nice technical and ethical application of behavioral science.
And Torben, sticking with the business side of things, so how did you get this second client, this first paying client? So was it them approaching you, or did you just knock on doors until someone agreed to do business with you?
No, it was actually a combination of developing ideas for how things can be done and sharing these ideas. So a bit of an idealistic thing of like, hey, if we think about shop design or customer interactions, why don't we use behavioral science to improve that experience, right? And then getting opportunities to talk to people, being it over a drink with colleagues or business contacts I had, or meeting people at conferences, going to places where other people with same interests meet and just displaying ideas. And also maybe writing about it, posting about it, sharing some ideas. And then holding conversations, honest, real conversations, not trying to sell anything, but really generally, as I said before, being generally interested about the topic and being generally excited to learn more about how we can tackle this opportunity until, I mean, as I said, luck plays a big role, until a contact I had, a dear valued contact, said, hey, look, I'm tasked to review this process, and I think your perspective could provide a helpful solution. Are you interested in partnering up? And then, of course, I said, yes. Surprise, surprise. And I said, yeah, what can we learn together? And we really applied this. Let's learn something together and let's create more know-how, because the first interaction was simply to get a better understanding of the situation. And I think this is key. So taking this a step further, what is required, I think, take something where you can potentially add value in a joint learning approach, meaning take the approach to say, let's do this. I can bring a lot of things to the table, but let's also be open to learning together and to creating something that will be ultimately tailored to the context, because you fully immerse yourself in this challenge. And that was what got me to run this project.
I want to still bring you back to the early days, because one of the biggest barriers people have when thinking about starting a business, starting a consultancy, is how do I get my first clients? How can I validate that it is a viable business idea? We got a couple of questions about that. So thinking back to your early days and your business development, lead generation activities, was it a similar pattern as with this first client that you described? You talked about your topics, you published articles, you just mingled with people at conferences. Was this the way you got your first leads?
Yes. So focus on this, what you want to do. So it is harder today maybe than it was a couple of years back, because simply the topic is more known and there are more people talking about it, and generally the noise has just increased over the last 6-7 years, both online and offline. But if you want to do this,
when you say noise, what do you mean by, do you mean the behavioral economics noise that more people are talking about it?
I mean, generally, if you go on your LinkedIn today, probably what you see is every second person calling themselves an AI or a behavioral specialist. This is at least the filter bubble that I have on my feed. And so it is really hard to stand out, to be a trusted source of expertise in a specific field. So that's why I say the focus will just have to be even larger than it were. So I think give yourself a certain focus and do that, and create proof points. We all know from behavioral science that people trust messengers who have a certain set of credibility, authority, and likability/similarity. So if you want to be a trusted messenger and you want to get some people to believe you and your services, what are you going to do? I mean, first show a true interest in the field. And I'm just getting the Q&A question I want to respond to in a second. And Yeah, focus on that. Create yourself a credible, establish ideally a credible source of specific know-how. For example, focus on a topic that is behavioral science plus X that you are interested in. Even if you want to go into behavioral science and AI, there are other ways you can do it. And then publish about it if possible. Have a perspective on it, and don't be shy to talk about it, and also don't be shy to invite people for feedback and learn. So for me, this whole journey, and that's what got us to this call today, was to reach out to other people and say, Matej, I see you running a successful setup, and I assume you're wrestling with the same ups and downs. So can we talk? Can we learn from each other, and can we have a chat? And that's how this tiny field of behavioral scientists is still connected. So all the people that have been on this series, including Melina and Sam, are dear friends of mine and people I used to exchange with, because they have shared similar stories and they have created learnings that are worth exchanging. So I think doing that with like-minded people is key. And then it is really also looking for chances. So you can only harvest if you start seeding. So you need to start seeding ideas. You need to talk to people. You need to approach people and just say, hey, let me have a first review of your challenge, and let me give you some ideas. And if you think they're good, let's have a go.
I have a very similar experience. At the beginning, it was a lot of work for free. It was a lot of efforts, often in vain, but all those efforts, all the time we invested in unpaid projects, then led to some first case studies with numbers that we could showcase, and that led to a first paying client and so on. And that's my second question. So you mentioned that your very first project was a pro bono project.
No, it was not a pro bono project. It was an NGO project. So it was
more
like
an NGO project.
No, it was.
Okay.
But also to John's question before, no, none of the projects have ever been free or discounted.
Oh, so you've never done any work for free?
No.
Okay, that's very interesting to hear, because we did quite a few things for free, especially for charities and some small businesses, just to get case studies. But obviously, it doesn't necessarily need to be for free, which is a good thing to hear for who are starting out.
Let me qualify this. So I think there are cases where it can pay off to make investments, but we have never provided a project for free, and we're very careful how and who we work in several engagements. So we do have situations where there are social impact projects, working for social goods, for NGOs, working on projects where the results are joint publications and where it pays off to do investments. Any organization does that. We do too. But I can certainly say that from the first project, we have not provided free projects.
Right. Now, looking at your business today, what do you get the most revenue from? Is it consulting projects? Is it training? Is it maybe something else?
We have currently have a nice split of about 75%, 80% of the projects are consultancy projects. This 80% splits about 50-50 in public space and in the business space. And the residual 15 to 20% is training and capability building. So we've had the opportunity or the chance to start not only building trainings, but also supporting organization and building up teams. We even have quite a deep experience and background now in setting up nudge units with organizations to make sure that the right resources and the right people are hired and put together in order to make behavioral science a successful endeavor in organizations, both publicly and privately. And so the split is about, as I said, in the business side, about 50-50 public and private, and in the the residual is training and capability building across all areas.
Do you sometimes see that training can lead to consulting?
Yes,
That
absolutely.
it's basically a door opener?
Yes, of course. And I think that's, for most people who enter the field of behavioral science, at least talking about myself, how I entered the field, it is this fascination about learning models, lingos, principles of how humans behave and interact, and how, I don't know, at least if you come from a traditional economic educational background or so, how this sometimes drastically differs to the models that you've learned in school or university. And that is true still today for various setups. So of course, the behavioral sciences are still often adopted from the pure interest in learning more about human behavior. And that often starts with an inspirational talk or a keynote, then leads into a training. And then if a training is successful, hopefully there are opportunities to apply and run projects together, because that is, think about it, it's the optimal ideal outcome of a training, that people identify opportunities where they can put this to use and actually change things. And if they then need some support, why not call the expert that has done the training or that has helped to set up the capability? Absolutely. And I think that's a natural and a very desirable outcome of any training.
I don't know what your experience has been, but also from the business perspective, I think it's much easier to sell training than to sell consulting. What's your experience?
It depends. It really depends. It is a training, and I would agree with you if you say this is an interesting, it's a door opener to a whole range of opportunities. And so companies and organizations, public and private organizations, are also in a win-win situation to run a training first, to understand if this applies and to get the insights in-house. Naturally, you can then decide if you want to go on or not. So I think, yes, it is an opportunity, but not always. I think sometimes we discover that a couple of our clients have very well educated about behavioral science. They sometimes have even more capabilities in-house, and they want us to provide very specific solutions or very specific expertise into some of the projects. So in this particular case, it is more a lead through dedicated expertise or know-how we can bring. And then in one occasion, even a training resulted out of a consulting project, because it was understood that this expertise might also be used in other areas of the business. And then it was sort of scaled out of a tiny niche into a wider organizational setup.
Great. One last question before we go on to the Q&A part. What was this question I went to ask you? Yes, that it's again about business development and lead generation. Did what you do now in terms of business development change compared to what you used to do those 5, 6, 7 years ago? Or maybe framing it in a different way, what are your most effective lead gen channels nowadays?
That is a bit difficult to answer for people starting out in this. So I'm aware that you welcomed a lot of people at the beginning of the career setting up a consultancy. So for us today, the most important way to work with our clients is to continue good work with our clients, meaning we're lucky and very happy to have a lot of recurring opportunities, because people have found the way to work with behavioral insights in business or policy setting very helpful, and identify new opportunities to apply them. And so the best way to do more business is to provide good quality services and have clients come back. I am aware that this is not a good advice for people starting out. So for this, I would say, think about challenges that various people out there are facing, and think of very specific things, and think about ways to answer or provide opportunities to engage with these challenges in a meaningful way. That means, for example, we have worked around topics of ethics, risk, and compliance. That's known and has been prominently featured. And so we continue to think around the topic of behavioral ethics, risk, and compliance, and about behavioral risk management. And we continue to talk about this at conferences, and we continue to be invited as keynote speakers and sometimes publish topical articles or papers about this, which allows us to come back and talk to people about this and showcase several certain expertise, which arose again out of what I said before, being able to listen and identify this as an opportunity for people to come back. So that's for us, despite that we continue working, the biggest opportunity. And then the third one would be, don't be shy to say what you did. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a behavioral consultant to just reference behavioral consultancy projects. You might have done tremendously interesting things in marketing, in comms, in PR, in HR, in any business domain you come from, and you say, this is what I did, this is my track record. Now I spice it up and combine it with behavioral insights, and I'm able to deliver an even more impactful package. Let's talk. I think these are the three opportunities that we're using. And to be honest, I think it is a bit of a behavioral experiment. It's in itself. So don't be shy to try and find and just be able to test yourself what works and what doesn't. If I, Matej, or anybody on this series or anybody out there would have found a way to do the perfect path, I wouldn't be sitting here, and it wouldn't anybody else. So I guess that's a bit of a call for everyone to find out. If you find out, let me know. I would be very interested in this.
I mean, we do have a couple of customer journeys that are working really well for us, and I'll be talking more about our methods and approaches in January when it's my turn to share my experience. Before we go on to the Q&A session, guys, there is something we call licensing that we've just started out, and so this is a program for maybe a call to all of you guys who are interested in entering the field. You would like to train others in consumer psychology, behavioral economics, but you don't have the training. Well, we're looking for licensed trainers who we would share our know-how with, and you could go out to the world and teach your client or your potential clients. You'll get a note about that in the follow-up email. And now, Torben, let's have a look at some of our questions. So we've answered those. There's a question about your drive framework. There's a question about your drive framework, and let's not elaborate on that right now, but we'd be super happy to feature a link to your framework in the follow-up email, if that's fine with you.
Yeah, we have a short version on the Affective advisory website, and it's simply the advisory framework we developed and used in the project. Five steps as the acronym is made up drive.
Perfect. What is the most important part of starting a behavioral science consultancy? A, clients, B, business model, or C, something else?
People make up a good model, make up good clients. So it's that order, I think. And when you're an individual consultant, you know the people side better than anybody else.
As a non-EU person who moved to Western Europe and got a degree in behavioral economics, it has been surprisingly difficult to find any roles related to BE that accept us. Why do you think so, and how do you think we can work around it?
It's a very interesting question, which we've discussed in the network of gaps quite often. So it's a surprise to me as well. I think, as I said at the beginning of this call, the Anglo-Saxon world is way more ahead when it comes to branding, labeling things as behavioral science. In Western Europe, a lot of things are behavioral science, yet not called behavioral science. So one workaround would be to look for anything that has to do with customer insights, branding, brand tech, marketing insights, everything that is about human insight, labels that might give an insight or a glimpse around this could be a lot about behavioral science, and it isn't. Second, I think we're much more challenged, all of us in this call, to be talking a bit more about behavioral science and to labeling things behavioral science or behavioral economics when they are. Meaning, oftentimes people know they need it, but they can't articulate or call it. So if you find ways to reframe it, you might have an opportunity to maybe go around this natural tendency to be like, oh, it's new or something we haven't called this. We don't have a role. We haven't had a role like this in our organization, or we don't want to hire a behavioral science consultant. Let's go and hire the good old organizational psychologist that we used to hire before. that is a bit of the reframing. It is called differently. There are not that many, and we need to work together in order to frame it a bit more explicitly. And we sometimes need to nudge people to understand that this is behavioral science if they haven't understood that this is. So nudge the nudger is a bit of our call.
If you were to start the company today, how would you approach it? The industry landscape has surely changed since 2017.
Yes. Good question that I'm happy not to answer so often. Putting a big challenge on me now. So today, how would you do it? Again, I think the market is up for focus, whatever you do. So that's my personal experience, in everything I have observed or everything that interests me is when a person, a company, a brand is showing dedication to a certain field. So I think still I would start with a very clear focus and a very clear proposition. This is what we are. This is what we're not. This is what we do. This is what we don't do, or what we don't do yet, but can think about in the future. I would keep that. I think today I would do, and this is status quo bias, I would again assemble a team of people that share this passion, that share the track record, and that have a bit of a genuine interest, but very different perspectives on topics. Starting from scratch, you are able to leverage the full power of AI and everything that you have available that wasn't available 7 years ago, that were just included in our way of working. So you can start from that right from scratch. And what you have today is a way better network and platforms showcasing applications of behavioral science that weren't there 7 years ago. So you don't have to have necessarily an own repository of cases. You can be much quicker in finding ways where MindWorks have provided a great case study and things have worked, or where the BIT have done work, or where Buzara or Ideas 42 or other people have created good work. It's also much easier to reach out to people. So I would reach out to people that are making a splash today. Some of the cool people that have been on this series are a good way to turn to, a good source of inspiration and network. And then what else I would do differently today? Nothing more than that, I think. I hope. But if I think about it longer,
do you think it is more
difficult
difficult today than it was 7 years ago, or is it the other way around?
Hard to say. I wouldn't say it's more difficult. I wouldn't also say it's easier. I think it's new challenges and new opportunities. Look, I don't know. What I find interesting is that there are not that many like large-scale behavioral science consultancies. So there must be this niche thing. So I don't know of any organization that has 1,000 behavioral science consultants, right?
Well,
so,
not even 100, not even
even
50,
100. I know one or 1.5 that has this. So that's it. But so what does it tell you? It tells you that there is a market for small, agile, highly specialized people in this field. which apparently is still the case today. So it apparently must be possible to enter this market. So using evidence to work with evidence-based approaches, I think this would be a good way to look for it. So I don't think it's that difficult, the landscape. There are more, yes, but there are not many super dominating players. Although probably more established than the years before.
I think what is a big difference is that nowadays there is a market for behavioral economics, consumer psychology, whereas 7-8 years ago there was no market. At least that's my experience, that we had to create our own market because people were and companies were not aware that anything like that even existed. They were more focused on the usually UX and communication and so on. But this kind of subconscious psychology, behavior, and so on, that wasn't really on their radar. And I think that's what makes it a little bit easier today, that people are aware, but also, well, you won't win them over with the Aurelius experiments, and citing those, because so many people have read his books. So you have to come up with something a little bit more advanced. But I think nowadays there is a market, which is I think a big advantage. Torben, by the way, we ran out of time. Do you have a hard stop, or did you have a hard stop at 6?
I had no. I have 12 more minutes. I will need to dash at 15 past. But I see there are a couple of more questions, so maybe we can get
Let's
through.
tackle those.
The question I had: what do you look for people you hire? So not very experienced professionals, though. The people we hire, we have a very maybe special hiring process. So we use a lot of behavioral insights to hire behavioral scientists, including fully double-blind, random candidate evaluation. So I don't know the name, the background, the age, the face of any applicant until we meet them for interviews. The first rounds are always completely anonymous, and it's public knowledge that we look for 4 components: professional experience, if they have, and this is more than the number of years, it's the what, so the actual experience, what people have done and why they've done it. Academic background or sort of qualification, which is a bit of a proof why what are people doing, what are they interested in, what have they spent their life with, and why did they, for example, go and study food sciences. Then we look for skills. For some specific roles we required coding skills to run analysis. Sometimes we look for more communication skills, so we have a special set of skills. And then last is motivation and overall character. So I think it does pay off to look not only for let's say people who have the perfect CV, but who have interest in character and story. We all want to work with people, and what I then add as a 5th dimension is a great match in an organization. So you come to work every day, you spend more time with your colleagues than you probably do with your family. Sadly enough, we need to work in a setup. I mean, luckily enough, but sadly enough, we spend so much time at work. Luckily enough, we need to set up a team that enjoys working together and that has a good time. And so that matters.
All right. Another question here. I'm a certified financial educator and I want to add more of a financial psychology component for personal finance decisions, especially to help business clients in their marketing. Do you see a correlation between what you do?
If I understand that correctly, I would say yes. We worked on a project. It's featured on our website even as a project where we supported a leading financial institution in helping their clients make better financial decisions, save more for their future, make more deliberate decisions around savings and credit use. So yes, there is certainly a correlation. If you want to more financial psychology around it, this is a huge field. For us, this is certainly something that is interesting, certainly something that I, given my personal background, I'm very interested in. And if you want to add that, let's have a conversation. I can certainly share the programs we run, and I'm happy to invite you to one of the programs, and also equally happy to share a thought and see how that could be achieved.
So please go ahead and reach out to Torben. And one last question. I want to do projects that change people's behavior for the better. How can I start? Where do I get the funding?
You start with making a compelling case what is better, which is a huge discussion. So I'm lucky that have a couple of lecturing positions, and we always, if we talk about the practice of nudging and working towards better off goals, the question we need to discuss is what's better. So if you can solve that and make a compelling case for what is better, that's the first thing to start with. Second, now how do you get to better? So how do we move people from where they are today, worse, to better? And you find this way, everybody will get you funding as long as it's a project where people are really caring about. So if you do say, I can make behavior better, define something that is really a pressing problem. So for example, if it's a topic of saving for pension in the future, for fighting obesity and or contributing to public movement, healthier diets, anything you can think of, there are plenty of pots to tap into. How do I get funding? Start small, apply for a pilot or a simple research grant that allows you to develop your idea further. And then once you have first results, ask for bigger. Start small. It's a behavioral science in itself is a step-by-step thing. It's a marginal gains thing. Find something out, make it better, use it, make it even better, make it even better, make it even better, scale it.
Torben, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you? Where can they find more about what you do, how you do it?
Probably best is to check out the website affective-advisory.com. We have worked with a couple of practitioners on creating a concept summary where we summarize some of the topics, some of the resources, some of the 20 most often asked questions to us and others. So it's a resource you might want to check out. We run a Applied Behavioral Science Academy in collaboration with the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology 2 times a year. You can find this under behavioralscience.academy. And last but not least, I'm on LinkedIn, so happy to share and contact and to connect and to follow each other on all the things that you might be able to do. And I hope this was at least a tiny bit useful and enjoyable. It's certainly been quite exciting for me to hear these questions and to find my way into answering them, hopefully somewhat appropriately. And
you did good.
Any things I can't or have not answered, feel free to also drop me a note. Happy to be in touch.
We'll make sure to include all that in the follow-up email. And well, Torben, thanks a lot, my friend, for being here. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights, and
thanks for this opportunity, and thanks for including me in this pack of people who run successful consultancies. I was flattered to receive this invitation and happy we had the chance to chat. So thanks very much, and thanks everybody for spending some time with us.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.